Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the board for their support and sponsorship of this event. This session is behind closed doors, so you can say whatever you want. We have a couple of thousand supporters. We're rocking the boat, reaching out, making some waves. And that's how we want every one of you to be. We encourage boldness, education, wealth creation, making changes, etc. And we're becoming every aggressive at every event. We're here to be a catalyst for change. We're here to empower people. The major problem we have today, and I say it again and again, we don't have enough problem solvers. We have a lot of guys out there depressed, bankrupt, sad, everything. Create solutions. If not, this country is going nowhere. Enough of the bickering. Be active. Stop being shy. Write op-eds. Go on TV. Go on radio. Lobby. If not, you're going nowhere. You can have all the money in the world. What we're going today is an economic warfare between the wealth takers and the wealth creators. Our biggest enemy today is the government. Redistribute your wealth, take your wealth, clip your wings, wealth bashing, etc. It's us, the wealth creators, against them, the wealth takers. The more wealth you create, the more you piss them off. Whatever the tax rate is, you know what? I make so much money, you can take half of it. I don't care. This is the attitude that you have to take. We have 2,000 members. These members start multiplying. Everyone on the average knows 250 people. That's a lot of numbers. Empowering them, because at the end of the day, the more we as the people have money and have created wealth, the more we can offset what the government is doing, and the more we're not going to take their crap, because it's all crap that they're selling us. We have a keynote speaker here. We're very careful on picking our speakers. Tom Rossman, a very good friend of mine, is both street smart and book smart. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Rossman.
The year was 1923. A young former Austrian corporal was feverishly flipping through old copies of US and British newspapers. As he read on, a searing revelation struck him. Contrary to everything that he had been told by his commanding officers and the Austrian press, the Allied reports of 1918 had unanimously concluded that weeks before the launching of the ill-fated Piave offensive, the armies of the Austro-Hungarian forces were headed for disastrous and ignominious defeat. 100,000 lives of his fellow soldiers and nearly that of his own were squandered for a lie. That patriotic soldier, Friedrich August von Hayek, would later write that the decisive influence in his life was that experience of World War I. And in his words, and the words of Ziad, the problem of political organization. In a society with so many diverse interests, how could a nation substantially improve the effectiveness of its fundamental political and economic decision-making? In different forms, this debate about political and economic decision-making has been raging for over 2,500 years, predating even Plato and Socrates. And even though at the present moment we seem to have reached a standstill, over the course of the modern era, we have experienced tremendous, unparalleled progress. In fact, over the last 200 years alone, mankind has created more wealth, more prosperity, more advances in science, medicine, technology than in all other periods of human history combined. The bottom line is, the problem with our current political and economic decision-making process is threefold: ideological illusion, partisan bias, and special interests. What I suggest as a remedy for this problem is very simply free market innovation. One of the things that led me to do this research and led me to explore how people thought and understood the world was my experiences in the emerging markets. So the two examples that I want to use of how free market innovation applied to the political process can substantially improve our decision-making process is manufacturing. Today, contrary to what many people would imagine, America is number 7 in robotics. And the reason for that is the inefficient system that we currently have in Washington that allowed unions to essentially buy off Washington and prevent the expansion of industrial robotics on the factory floor, and the jobs that were lost would have been lost anyway, but as is the case in so many other areas of American technology, the lack of leadership and intelligent debate on the subject resulted in the net loss of both jobs and productivity. The problem is, people who advocate free markets and liberty have a very difficult challenge. It's very easy to take a dirigiste mentality and say, we're going to give you things, and when hard economic times hit, we're going to give you more things. That's a very easy concept to understand. And as a result, the liberal establishment and the Democratic Party has captured a huge percentage of the population. And unfortunately, it's difficult for those of us who believe in economic liberty and political liberty to essentially explain that, because it takes a much more complicated approach. It takes a much more nuanced approach. The history of liberty has demonstrated over and over from the Industrial Revolution until today that it can create vastly greater amounts of wealth and prosperity than any other system. Unfortunately, today, the dominant forces in academia, the dominant forces in the media, to a large extent, are completely controlled by the forces of the left. Those forces have a very easy story to tell. It is, we'll give you more things and you'll be really happy. But that means that you have to vote for us. Where the educational system and the youth are very dominated by a few issues, which are pulling them dramatically to the left. Ideological illusion is a tremendous barrier to good decision making and even understanding what the real world actually is. And if we don't combat that illusion by correcting it, not by presenting another false narrative, but by actually presenting the facts and then introducing a methodology of evidence-based decision making. In the business world, if you fail, if you don't make money, then you go out of business. It's very simple. In politics, you can fail and fail and fail and fail and still get reelected. Your view of the world dictates to a large extent how successful you are in life. By constraining natural human emotions of aggressiveness too much, we are creating a culture of, I hate to use the phrase because it's a cliche, but the nanny state.
Do we roll back and execute and come back to the good old days by leadership at the top, like a Reagan-like figure going forward, or by the grassroots waking up and starting to execute and being like a rude awakening for the grassroots?
Right.
Which is faster?
So I believe, my personal belief, is that you have to build from the grassroots.
I'm 20 years old, so I get to see firsthand the transformation process that's occurring between the youth and how they're developing this liberal mindset. So my answer to the question would be, hell yes, we should be using all the propaganda we can because we have the right intention on our side.
Right.
We have the intention to free all of these people who are ignorant to the truth or may not have been taught it as kids.